says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a police! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as Forty20. Join me to break down all the NRL and Parramatta news this week is my good mate Sixties and my good mate Clint. Boys, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty well, given it was a win on the weekend, and it was great to be back with Sunday football. We had a good time back at the club with the podcast and with young Fletch. So all in all, mate, a good week was had, and looking forward to this weekend.
Week's always better after a win, gentlemen.
Yeah.
2 in a row and feeling a lot better about the season.
Damn right. And as always, before we get into the NRL and Parramatta news, boys, just a quick shout out to the Tip Sheet sponsors, Big Swing Golf, Northmead, and star partners, Parramatta, Narellan, and Auburn. Massive thanks to both those companies for sponsoring our podcast. But let's get into it, boys, with the NRL news.
News team, assemble!
All right, well, let's get into it with the Parramatta results on the weekend, boys. You already talked about that or alluded to that Parramatta win on Sunday against the Canterbury Bulldogs, but the action actually started on Saturday out at Campbelltown Stadium. Sixties, I know you were out there. I was on the live stream. Parramatta Eels playing in the Tarsha Gale, Harold Matthews and SG Ball, kicking off with the Harold Matthews against the Cronulla Sharks, where the Eels posted an 18-6 victory against one. You always got to say they're almost a bitter rival at this point in the junior reps, aren't they, Sixties?
Yeah, they certainly are. Cronulla have come quite a long way when it comes to the junior rep results. They've been producing a lot of good locals down in the Shire, and we've certainly witnessed a couple of big finals in the past between the two clubs, and they really turned up ready to take it to the Eels on Saturday. At least one player, maybe just a little bit too revved up.
Young Nakora Williams losing his head in this game for the Cronulla Sharks. But for the Eels 60s, it was Junior Fangalele, Mikhail Tito and Josiah Funa-Ayuta, the captain, scoring those 3 tries. Dom Ferrugia kicking 3 goals. And, yeah, this was you talk about saving your best for last in terms of the season, and the Harold Matthews really put on a clinic in this game. They copped some pretty tough calls in terms of the penalties. I think Cronulla did it pretty easy coming out of their red zone due to those calls. But they defended with resolution and almost a grimness to them that you wouldn't expect in the Harold Matthews grade, let alone any of the junior rep pathways. They were just so resolute defensively, and then they just delivered some massive counter blows when it counted.
I reckon that was close to one of the best defensive displays I've seen in a junior rep match for some time.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Big time agreement there. Yeah, I mean, the tone was set in the middles. I thought Mikhail Tito, not only scoring a try, was tremendous running the ball, aptly supported by Jordan Uta and Tyson Sanglang at lock forward there. But the captain, Josiah Funa-Ayuta, was just tremendous. He really caused, I think it was the left edge of the Cronulla Sharks, nightmares. I felt like he was getting 15, 20 metres every carry once he got early ball there, 60s.
Yeah, when you talk about a captain's knock, that was right up there. And you know what? It was the sort of football that you needed to have from a team in a finals match where the forwards just get their job done in winning the middle, and they did it, as you spoke about, under adversity, because it seemed like they just couldn't buy a decision. Really, It was the Sharks were able to get, and maybe this is an Eels problem. Maybe there's a discipline issue. Maybe there's things that we're doing wrong. But the Sharks were getting down to Parramatta's end off the back of penalties and 6 agains. It just seemed far too easy. And then all of that defensive work that was in the red zone was, you had to think at some stage it was going to take its toll, but it didn't. As you said, the Eels were just resolute. And I've got no idea how they were holding them out with some of the possession the Sharks had.
Junior Fangalele was tremendous in defence too. He forced a couple of mistakes on Parramatta's goal line. Clint, did you have a chance to catch this one on the live stream? Or you were out there on
Yeah, no, I watched this one on the live stream, and to echo your points, gents, it was an incredible defensive display. It kind of felt like the ball was going to drop at one point with the amount of penalties that felt like they were going one way at certain parts of the game. That the defense was just eventually going to cave, and as you said, it didn't happen. And that's before we even consider the amount of niggle that was in the game. It was an aggressive Cronulla team, and that's before we even consider the sin bin offence from young Nakora Williams. He was I think every hit up and every tackle he in particular was involved in.
It was a running skirmish with the Parramatta flanker, Aidan Kaborian, I think, and they did a very good job pressing his buttons. So, yeah, that was a well done from the Eels to hold their resolve there and not get baited into the niggle, but take advantage of it.
Yeah, and now they move on to the grand final qualifier at Leichhardt Oval this week, mate.
Taking on the Newcastle Knights, another team that we're going into the match blind with, boys. Didn't match up against Newcastle this season because it's only 9 games, sometimes with a bye, and I think it's a 15-team competition now. So, yeah, going to have to do some serious scouting internally. But if they play the way they did against the Cronulla boys, they're going to be hard to beat in this competition.
Yeah, and for anyone that's getting out there, it's fairly late matches in the day for both the Mats and the SG Ball.
Yeah, I think it's a 4:15 kickoff, 4 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. 4:15,
5:45 for SG Ball out at Leichhardt. So obviously you can catch that one on the live stream. But if you're getting out there, make sure to adjust your Saturday plans around it being a later kickoff. That brings us to the second fixture of the day, boys, where the SG Ball sort of proved that old adage, better late than never. Very, very true. They're taking on a young but outstanding Western Suburbs SG Ball team, which is really the core of the team that won Harold Matthews last year. The Eels being caught up in it was a incredibly fast-paced, physical game with not necessarily a lot of high quality for good lengths of the exchanges there, with the team sort of getting baited in the mistakes on both sides. But when it came push to shove, the key players for the Parramatta Eels, obviously dummy half Matty Arthur, fullback Arpa Tweedle, halfback Ethan Sanders, coming up, trumps, setting up a couple of tries late in the run to bring the Eels home 18-10. Tweedle scoring a double there, with Ethan Sanders kicking 3 goals, Matty Arthur the other try scorer at the end. So the Parramatta Eels doing what was necessary here, boys. It wasn't the prettiest game, and I think there was actually quite analogous to the game in the NRL with the Eels and the Bulldogs, where the physicality was very good, but you can make some legitimate complaints about pass selection, play selection, and execution.
Yeah, you can. And I'm pretty sure as well that if you added up the time that the West Magpies were in the lead, it would have surpassed the period of time that the Eels had the lead, but the Eels had the lead at the time that mattered,
exactly,
which was at the end of the game.
The clock's at 0-0, exactly.
Yeah, so basically it was the first 24 minutes, it was both teams really physical, but the attack wasn't quite clicking. And it seemed like it was quite frenetic, the pace, without the fine-tuned execution. And then Wests were the first to score. It was unconverted, and that 4-0 scoreline stayed for some time. And then the Eels finally broke it, and it was a great individual try, I think, from memory, that was Arpa Tweedle.
Coming down Parramatta's left edge, ball in both hands in front of him. What you love to see from a ball player, created that moment of hesitation in the defence, and he just sliced through. Very good individual.
So there was the converted try for that. So we took the lead, and then literally straight after that, I think it was the kickoff set where we got to the kick downfield, and then the West fullback fielded the ball and ran 90 metres to score. That was the, I think from memory, that was the period of time with which we had a 2-point lead, and it was quickly evaporated. 10-6 down from that point until basically about 6 minutes to go. And then we had the terrific try that was Arpa's second try, and that started with, we were struggling to get out of our own red zone, and then Matty Arthur caught the markers and defence going back a bit slowly, and he took off from dummy half, found Muhammad Alamuddin backing up. Alamuddin's got through most of the ruck. He's found
Ethan Sanders,
and then Ethan Sanders has the fullback Arpa Tweedle that backing up, and he's then gone off on his run to plant the ball under the posts there, and that pretty much was still the game was still in the balance then. It was only a 2-point lead, and anything could have happened, and nearly did, because in that last 5 minutes, the Magpies put up one enormous bomb into the Eels in goal. Their fullback leapt up above the Eels winger, got both hands on the ball, and as he's coming down, lost control of it. That would have been his third try for the day, and it looked for all the world like he was going to get the score. He didn't. And then, of course, we had Matty Arthur got a try from dummy half in the last couple of minutes that put the game to bed there and earned that spot at the grand final qualifier. But it was edge of the seat stuff. Never for any moment was I sitting comfortable anyway. It felt like watching one of Parramatta's NRL games.
That's why I said it was analogous, wasn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, you love to see him prevail. You love to see the core players coming together in the big moments and win this one. Clint, you want anything to tack onto that one from what 60 said?
It's just great to see that never say die attitude that seems to have become a part of our junior representative system over the last couple of years. You know, we're seeing the fruits of the labor, or at least the very first parts of it, I should say. As you touched on some of those boys who graduated from the Harold Matts team in this year's SG Ball team. These are Parramatta players. These are Parramatta juniors, you know, involved in our junior rugby league competitions, representing the Parramatta Eels and doing everything they can for victory. It bodes well for the future. And, you know, it's the exact type of attitude that you want to see in potential first-grade footballers.
What particularly pleased me, I mean, everyone was really, as you said, everyone's contributed, everyone's bought in that SG Ball performance. Yeah, the attack was a bit clunky at times, but it was that never say die attitude that was there. And then when it mattered, the spine produced that special try, albeit with Mohamed Alameddine also involved and playing a key role in that. But to see the spine players so instrumental in that try, it was really important. Also, a shout out to Sam Tuivasa, who I think it was his run early in the just before Tweedle, the ball shifted to Tweedle, that got the opened up a little bit of space for that first try. It drew defenders across to the other side of the field, and Parramatta definitely enjoy that play of attracting defenders to one side of the field and then shifting very quickly to the other. And that first try was pretty much the hallmark of that. So anyway, we move on. As we said, they've got a late game at Leichhardt on Saturday. I think probably by that stage, their opponents would have been decided.
It's the Canberra Raiders.
Yeah. So no, I mean the final match.
That would be the final match. You're right. There would be early. I think that's the reverse what we did last week, where we played the morning games and there were afternoon games to decide our opponents. So yeah, we will know who the grand finalist is against us before kickoff.
Because we're going in saying they're gonna win. But I'll tell you what, it is going to be a tough encounter, because last time they played the Raiders were far too good. They had Chev Stewart, is it?
Chevy Stewart, yeah.
Yeah. He's the Raiders recruited him from the Sharks, and he was quite a key player with the Sharks.
Thankfully, despite being man of the match against Parramatta when they met earlier this season, he's gone so well that they put him up to Flegg, and he did so well there they put him up into the New South Wales Cup. So he's not playing the grand final qualifier, which is a massive out for the Canberra Raiders.
I wasn't. I hadn't been keeping up to date with that, so I appreciate that bit of feedback there, mate. That makes it a completely different ball game.
The Eels also have Richard Penasini and Blaise Talangi back from a team that went down to the Raiders, and it is worth mentioning that they played a good half of football against Canberra and went into Oranges, very close to even. But in the second half is what got them. So got to play the full 70 minutes against Canberra on Saturday. But, they've certainly got the talent on paper to get this job done.
That's remarkable. So Chevy Stewart's playing New South Wales Cup.
I believe so. Let me just confirm that for you, but I'm pretty certain that is the case here. So if I go to Canberra Raiders here, who are on the bye this week, so that doesn't. Did he play the week before? Yeah, he was playing fullback in a victory against the Dragons last weekend, and they've actually got the bye this week, but they haven't named him because is he playing Jersey Flegg instead? Gosh, no, they got the bye there too. So they just prioritise his value to the senior football pathways now. So he is not being picked in this team. Let me just 100% confirm that, but I'm pretty certain. Yeah, Samuel Gash. So they're just not picking him in junior reps anymore. So that's a massive tip of the hat to him.
Also, for people that aren't regular followers of the junior representative program, it's these sorts of things can happen with SG ball players, because we also saw that with the Dragons with
Junior Amone.
Yeah, with Amone. He went from playing SG ball at the start of the season to NRL by the end of the season. It's quite a remarkable elevation that happened, but it can happen. So when we start talking about certain names, there might be one or two that we mention that we might say, jot that name down, because it's that particular player might well advance into the NRL, or as the case may be, NRLW, and maybe there's one we might be talking about from the Tarsha Gale clash and the opposing team.
Yeah, so this one was the one loss for the Parramatta Eels, unfortunately, and it's going to be one they're going to rue, I think, Sixties, because they had the ascendancy in this game through the first 30 minutes before falling to the Illawarra Steelers to the tune of 20-4. Alicia Bell scoring the lone try for the blue and gold in this contest. But yeah, this was a game where they had the Steelers rattled. They were on the back foot and had lost all their composure in the first 30 minutes. Parramatta were winning the collisions, were winning the field position battle, but couldn't deal the finishing blow to them, just couldn't quite capitalise on those opportunities. And I've got to give full credit to young Yo here, who, if I just pull up the name proper, it's Sienna, I think. Sienna Yo, who I'm a bit confused as to whether it's the sister or the cousin of Isaiah Yo. It might be the cousin. But she has NRLW superstar written all over her. And we speak about composure and the ability to play under pressure. Those qualities really shone through for her and is what kept the Steelers in this game and eventually what led them to victory. She was tremendous.
Just the way she takes the ball deep into the line as the halfback, it really set up their attacking plays. And yes, you're right. The Eels had all of that early ascendancy, and that try that the Steelers scored before halftime, that was really that had to deal a psychological blow to the Eels, because the Eels were so dominant. Then essentially against the run of play, the Steelers have scored a try from their own side of halfway, where I'm not sure if it was their winger or centre, whoever it was, certainly had some toe.
The centre, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and she crossed in the corner, and then just to rub salt into the wound, their kicker
drilled it from the sideline, yeah.
Yeah, well, it just scraped over the crossbar, and then she ended up missing a couple from reasonably close range, and I'm not sure whether that was, made it even more bitter pill to swallow that the Eels went into half time with a deficit, because it just was not the sort of first half where you expected for them to have a deficit after the way that first half unfolded. But then in the second half, it just came apart for them. It just the attack didn't really happen, and then Yo just took control for the Steelers, and you have to say they were deserved winners. Full marks to the Eels Tarsha Gale team, because I really regarded this season as a bit of a rebuilding year for them. There was certainly a lot of players that had moved on, because they were a team that had 18, 19-year-olds, and there are some 18-year-olds in this squad this year. But I thought they did well to get just one game shy of where they reached last year. So, and to an extent, there was almost a similarity about the match in which they bowed out, because they were the dominant team last year in that semi-final against the Knights. Albeit, I think they got the raw end of the deal with some decisions last year.
Yeah, whereas in this game, you weren't really upset about the officials, just the class of the Steelers was too good.
Yeah. The Steelers certainly played better than they did when the Eels drew with them earlier this year. It was a real arm wrestle of a game down in Wollongong for that earlier encounter. But anyway, congratulations to Ryan Walker and the staff and all the girls on a season in which they qualified for finals football. And it's onwards and upwards, whether it be for the girls going into the Harvey Norman New South Wales Premiership or getting development contracts with the Eels NRLW squad. I guess we will soon find out about where their path takes them, or if they're young enough, backing up again for another Tasha Gale Cup. But it's now two teams, as we've talked about, that are progressing into the grand final qualifiers this weekend in Leichhardt Oval. So, but we do have three other games that we need to push through.
Yeah,
here.
very, very quickly too, so we can get on to the actual NRL and Parramatta news. One game we didn't get to see, boys, because it clashed with the junior representatives, was the Jersey Flegg Cup. The Eels' 4-game win streak coming to an end against another top-of-the-ladder team in the Canterbury Bulldogs. Very narrow loss here, 26-22, seeing the Bulldogs prevail out at New Era Stadium on Saturday. For the Eels, Lindsay Munro, Mac Porfisi, Tyson Chase and Noah Reid scoring. Sam Loizu taking over the kicking duties this week. He was 3 from 4 off the tee, doing a pretty good job there. But yeah, hat-trick to Geordie Mazzone, including an intercept try. Massive for the Bulldogs in this one, and the Eels just falling short. Sixties, I don't know if you've got any quick feedback to give from this one before we move on to the Cup and NRL.
I think the main feedback that I had was lost opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main feedback.
And
that
also
I had.
worth reminding that the Eels were down some troops this week. They had a very tough fallout from a big win against the West Tigers the week before, losing Brock Parker, who's arguably their best player, at least in your book. 60s, he's been outstanding. Also, very good backline members, Terrell Williams and Bo Newland's also out. So, Eels having to roll off the punches this week and falling just short against another very good team in the Flegg. No need to feel awful about the outcome. Those 60s is still, a quality loss, I suppose. And the Eels can certainly still do some damage in the coming weeks.
Yes, we can't use the term quality loss, however, about the New South Wales Cup.
No, that is a great way to segue into the reserve grade outcome where we watched this one live out at CommBank. It was the curtain raiser to the NRL fixture on a very, very nice Sunday, actually. It was overcast when we arrived at Parramatta, but by the time the Cup kicked off, it was literally perfect conditions and perfect conditions for the Eels to flail about, and unfortunately they were very, very ordinary in this game. They lost 28-6. The Bulldogs were the best team in this competition coming into this particular game. They exit the competition still the number one team because they get that 22-point victory. But, geez, the Eels played terribly. And the Dogs probably did them a favour on the scoreboard. Sixties. They could have scored another 2, 3, maybe 4 tries in this contest. But as it stands, Jack Murchie, the lone try scorer for the Blue and Gold, he went up and claimed the crossfield kick for his own. Nice little effort, actually. Jordan Rankin tacking on the extras. But for the Bulldogs, their left winger, Blake Wilson, had a huge day, bagging a double, went for over 200 metres. We saw young halfback Carl Lawapu, who they paid a lot of money from Brisbane to go get. He had a nice little chip kick at the end. I don't think he had a huge game in terms of the rest of it, but he had a little bit of flashes here and there. But, geez, the Eels just played some terrible football in this game.
My simple takes, we didn't win the middle, and then when we shifted, we made far too many errors. And I don't know if I can sum it up too much more than that. No. It was just a flat performance. Clint, you were out there at the stadium. Were you there for all of the New South Wales Cup game?
I saw it from start to finish, escaping the sun and potential sunburns throughout the process on the eastern side. I probably should have been on the other side of the ground with you, gents, and I'll take that as indirect feedback for next time. But it was flat. Is probably even being a little bit generous. There's a lot about this performance that just. We touched on with the juniors, having a Parramatta identity and culture. The New South Wales Cup side felt anything but that. on Sunday. You know, there was a lot of missed tackles, players missing some assignments. Look, some decent individual performances, but collectively as a team, it was it's not what you want to see. And it's pretty disappointing when you feel the team had made a little bit of headway in the previous weeks. And, you know, there was a couple of wins and a draw in there. And this was a Bulldogs team, yes, the top of the table, but in New South Wales Cup, but missing some players to first grade as well. So, you know, it probably gives a little bit of indication of some of the quality that's starting to come through the Canterbury system at the moment. Both Canterbury wingers absolutely tore us apart in the New South Wales Cup. They were one of them got a hat trick. I think the other ran for well over 250 metres with plenty of tackle break, and we saw a complete breakdown of our middle.
Yeah. It's a game that's very difficult to look at any of those individual performances and say someone had a good game without some kind of drawback. I mean, you look at the numbers, Offa Hickey-Ogden had a monster day. 20 carries, 202 metres, a whole ton of tackle breaks as well. But he also had 2 errors and got put in a sin bin. You know, so outside of that, really bad days at the office for Jordan Rankin and young Tony Mattelli, 4 errors apiece there. I think with young Tony, maybe the sort of week-to-week grind has caught up to him a little bit in this grade. He's just he had a very, very strong opening, I want to say 4 or 5 weeks, but the last 2 games, it looks like he's just dropped a notch here. So got to just do some load management with him and get him through that to that second win sort of stage of the team. But yeah, the back line really struggled against the Canterbury big and dynamic outside backs, and yeah, just it was almost like a rudderless performance, boys. So onwards and upwards for the New South Wales Cup. They have to be better moving forwards, although the assignment is very difficult next week, taking on the second place team in the competition over in New Zealand in the Warriors. And the Warriors have been very formidable indeed. They actually knocked off the Canterbury Bulldogs in this grade. So very, very good team there. And the Eels are going to be without a few players in reserve grade due to injury and suspension and maybe even passport issues. So we'll talk about that later. NRL game, boys, the last result to talk about from the weekend. The most important result to get. So thankfully the Eels did bag this one. And it was what a odd one as well. They won in an absolute canter 30-4. But this is a game you come out of both happy and frustrated with, because you're happy that the team won so easily, playing so within themselves at times. But they also played with the sort of physicality that we've been demanding of them the last couple of weeks that's been lacking. So good to see them get back to their roots with the ability to win the collisions. And obviously Reagan Campbell-Gillard instrumental leading from the front in that regard. But yeah, also far from a complete performance against the Canterbury team that copped some injuries in this game.
You know what? I'm just going to go to a couple of very simple things, which is, yes, there was the physicality there. Yes, they won the middle, got the 2 competition points, picked up 26 points in differential, and no major injuries of any sort really that came out of it for the Eels. And you've basically got, nothing but, I don't think you can take anything but positives from that, because when you look at Goal mentioned this in his grades, that the previous week the Eels had nothing go their way in the way of possession against the Tigers. They scraped through to the win against a team that was down at the bottom of the table. But normally with those sort of stats, you associate the stats of possession and completions, that sort of thing, against the Tigers with the losing side. But somehow the Eels did manage to manufacture a win. This week, the Eels had a better share of possession and came up with a 26-point win against a team that was sitting above them on the table, albeit with a few injuries. So last week, the Tigers got all the praise and were considered unlucky to lose despite having the dominance in possession. And this week, somehow the Bulldogs were picking up a bit of praise for their tenacity.
There's a common denominator.
Losing by 26 points.
I'll tell you one thing, though, boys, and it's a real, I don't want to say pat in the back to the team, but it's almost a reward for that tough opening to the season where they kept those losses to really tight margins. 4 points, obviously, each game, the first 3 weeks, 8 points against the Roosters. By winning by 26 points against the Canterbury Bulldogs, not only are they the only team in the bottom 9 with a positive points differential now at plus 13, they're actually ahead of the Dolphins in 8th place with a -12 differential, right in the heels of the Melbourne Storm, 16 points differential, and above Manly, who's sitting 4th at 6 points differential. So Parramatta, those losses, as much as they've hurt the Eels on the ladder early on, their ability to minimise the points differential impact of those losses now has them in a position to really make a push up the ladder in the meaty part of the season.
Yeah. Now, Clint, you had the misfortune of sitting next to me in the stands and watching the agony that I go through on a weekly basis with the team, because a lot of people regard me as the glass half full supporter. I test any assessment of that during a match because, as you know, I do it tough during a game. What was your takes, mate? You got to hear plenty of mine during the game.
Well, firstly, you're not alone in that. I think all of us here are considered quite measured when we're discussing our team outside the 80 minutes of NRL. And during the 80 minutes of NRL, we're riding the emotional wave just like any other supporter, member, and fan is. So you're definitely not alone in that one, mate. And even though this is probably a more quiet game from myself, the role has certainly been reversed plenty of times before as well. Look, I think we cited at full time that it was maybe the flattest we had felt after a 26-point win, which sounds a bit strange to say. But, because the list that you've just gone through, we ticked a lot of boxes, and it's exactly what you want. You bank the win, and I think I said afterwards, you bank the win, you move on. That's what this part of the year is all about. We don't want to be giving our all our secrets away at this time of year, and you want to build and ride the wave of momentum. Firstly, qualifying for the finals, hopefully in the top 4 position, hopefully in the top 2 position, so you get a home final, and then you can dictate terms and run the race at your own pace. But look, there was a lot to like about what happened on Sunday as well. I in particular was incredibly impressed with Gutherson's heroics, and that's not just because he got beat up and he played on with the tape around his head, but Burton unleashed some of those kicks, and it's been well documented some of the troubles that probably more our wingers and certainly Waqa Blake when he was playing on the wing for us last year have had under the high ball. So I think there was a degree of confidence maybe reinstalled in the supporter base that, look, something might go up looking pretty ugly, but we've got a pretty reliable fullback there that'll get the job done and then return serve after that. So that was a key little thing to take away. But the big thing, I think, is obviously the return of Reed Marnie to CommBank Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the toy elephant in the room, isn't it? We're so used to Parramatta Eels or former Parramatta Eels coming back and having the monster revenge game, but poor Reed Marnie had the complete opposite of that. That was the greatest anti-revenge game of all time, and obviously the crowd were eating it up, but so too were the players, boys. I don't know if it was like ill feeling like that, but you could tell that they enjoyed giving it to Reed, who is obviously a bit of a shit stirrer, as any good dummy half is. So giving him a bit of his own medicine in that game was probably cathartic for some of the big units like Reagan Campbell-Gillard. Yeah,
absolutely. And we, as you say, we don't like to put the boot into former players because, for a start, you always like to think that players leave the club on good terms, and you'd like them to be leaving the club on good terms, not just with the coaching staff, but with the fans as well. But last year, and let me preface this by saying, over the years, we've been able to have a number of conversations with Reed Marnie. He was doing fabulous things with the Giant Steps School and the respite work that was carried on with Steve Dresler with
Whatability.
With Whatability. So he was involved with that, but he was one of those graduates of Eels players who worked out at the Giant Steps School, and it became a passion of his as well to help out there as much as he could, even when he became a full-time footballer with the Eels. he's a decent bloke. He really is, and was always one of the last off the field at training. So I have no question about the level of effort that he put in when he was playing for the Eels. However, the harsh reality came, I think, in the post-match press conference when he said about the Bulldogs, "I absolutely love this club." And I can't ever remember him saying those words about the Eels. I'm not like he played like he loved the club, but I never heard him verbalise it. And maybe he's more invested there. Maybe this has been his club. That was the club that he started at. Maybe this is where he sees the rest of his football career. Maybe it's probably likely he'll never come back to the Eels. And I guess under those circumstances, rip in. Rip in. So, look, Fletch certainly didn't miss him in our post-match.
I think the Hobbit
the
was
club.
The term used for him. So, look, I understand
Well
fans
done,
wanting to rip in, especially when you play that position and you play that provocateur role like Reid and so many other dummy halves do. For fans and players, there is, like I said, probably nothing more cathartic than being able to get one back in. And we saw Big Reg, I think, I don't know what he said, but he roared something at Reid after he scored that try over him. And Sean Lane sort of added to that in the post game, saying that Reid and Reg have a bit of beef, which I think actually goes back to when Reg was still a Panther. And I think Reid was a massive shit stirrer against the Reg back in the day. So Reg has obviously put that one in the bank and paid out some dividends on it. But yeah, so the Eels getting the job done, boys. Like we just mentioned, best for and against outside the top 8 now, which is fantastic. Positions them to start climbing the ladder. Let's move on to the team list for round 8. And before we get there, I suppose we can gripe a little bit about the stupidity of Parramatta's draw. Again, another quirk, he says, dripping with sarcasm. The quirky draw for the Parramatta Eels continues with a 5-day turnaround on an interstate trip to Darwin in the most challenging football conditions any team's going to play all year. Like, I know that the club do the right thing by the NRL official, like in the official channels in terms of what they say to the media. Brad Alpha never tries to have a slide dig at whatnot, but that is really disappointing that our draw has been such a debacle on so many different levels here. But, fair enough playing teams off buys early on. Fair enough having, all the Thursday night games. You wear that because that's for TV ratings. How could you not schedule a 6-day or 7-day turnaround on a trip to Darwin? I do not know. So very disappointed there, boys. I don't know what your piece on that is.
Well, that's been determined by the broadcasters. They pick what matches they want and the time slots that they want them in. So the draw's done, but in terms of the days that the matches happen, it's basically the broadcasters divided up. I'm not sure the order, who gets first pick, second pick, what have you, but they each get but it turns in picking for each weekend the matches that they want for their particular slots. And when you think about it, you've got the Fox have got that exclusive Friday night 6 o'clock slot. The Thursday and the Friday ones they share. And then, of course, you've got the Saturday games that Fox have the exclusive on, and one of the Sunday games that Fox have the exclusive on. So anyway, from however it's done, they divide up the order of selections.
Yeah, I understand the broadcasters have the power, but where's the common sense? And it feels like at some point the NRL needs to say, well, yeah, we do want the Broncos and the Eels to play Friday night football in Darwin because that's going to be a massive game, but let's use common sense. In the week before, let's give them the Friday night game against the Bulldogs because that's also a rivalry game and gives them a chance to prep for the trip interstate. So that's on both the governing body and the broadcasters, in my opinion. But let's not waste time because the podcast is going on and on. Let's get into team sheet news, boys, for the Eels and the Broncos. Brisbane Broncos, it's a regular occurrence, the Parramatta Eels. They get back or the opposition getting back a key player. And it's not so long ago that you would say that Corey Oates wasn't a key player. With a bit of a mid-season or mid-career slump happening for him, but he's back to his best in recent seasons, and is a big weapon for that Brisbane team. He rounds out their backline, bringing up the full strength. Walsh, Oates, Staggs, Farnworth, Cobbo, up there for the best in the competition. That forward pack, no slouch too when you talk about Haas, Flegler, Carrigan, Capewell. Jordan Ricky, pretty good with the ball in hand, but capable of missing a few tackles. The Broncos, obviously, a very good outfit, boys. For the Eels, though, there is the one starting change with no surprises, but Josh Hodgson returning to the team following his bout with the flu on the weekend. That pushes Brendan Hands back to the interchange, back to that super utility role that he's been so good at. And the one player to make way this week for that cascading set of changes is Makahesi Makatoa. Matt Doorey winning out that final spot after being the guy that was initially overlooked last week, obviously coming back into the team on Sunday, which means Gufferson, Sevo, Penasini, Russell, Dunster on the wings. No change there. Importantly, with the return of Bailey Simonson, he's outside the team looking in right now. Brown, Moses, Campbell Gillard, Hodgson, Barlaw, Lane, Cartwright, Madison. So Eels going with the same sort of default forward pack they named before kickoff against Canterbury, but they did make that shuffle with Madison going to the right edge, Hopgood coming to the starting team, Cartwright to the bench. Have to wait and see how that plays out in Darwin, boys. But do we like the team list? Obviously, Hodgson coming back in is no surprise. I like the fact that Matt Doorey stays in the team. You liking RBA pulled this one together? Do you like Wirumu being on the interchange in those Darwinian conditions?
Just looking at it, we're not going to get too much into the preview aspect of it because we do have our preview podcast. So just from a team perspective, I'm interested in the take from both of you fellas when it comes to, are we going to see a late change or two? I'm not totally convinced that Bailey Simonson won't play.
Yeah, I too think that there's opportunity to whether you put him on the wing or you put Sean Russell onto the right wing and bring Bailey into the centres. It's not a slight on Hayes, but it's just a reminder of what sort of timeline you have to expect with full recoveries coming back from those knee injuries. He's, I think, still probably a step short of where he would want to be himself. But on the flip side, I wouldn't be surprised if BA does retain Hayes because that near unshakable faith in his players has been one of his strongest calling cards as a coach. And obviously sometimes it has been a detriment too. That's how it goes. But the faith that he empowers his players with often ends up being the better outcome in the long term. So it wouldn't be surprising if Dunster did hold his place in the team.
Yeah. What about you, Clint? You expecting it to go 1-17 or are you expecting a late change?
I've been doing a 360 on this pretty much post Bulldogs game. I could make a case for Bailey starting at centre, Sean Russell going the wing. I could make a case for Bailey coming onto the wing, Sean Russell starting at centre. I could make a case for Sean Russell staying at centre and Hayes Dunster staying at centre, staying on the wing rather. I could see any number of combinations running out on Friday night. We'll definitely watch the 24-hour change or update, I should say, with keen interest to see who's still there. And that's probably not even the only changes that may happen. We saw in the Bulldogs game the last minute changes to the starting lineup with Matt Doorey's inclusion. Do we potentially see some other or similar fifths this week? Perhaps, maybe, I don't know. Whether we have to factor in the potential management of minutes for certain players as well. It is interesting, as you touched on, with Wirumu being selected. He's obviously not. He's known for being a more explosive prop as opposed to a big minutes prop. But then it's also worth saying that he had, prior to coming to Parramatta, he was a North Queensland Cowboy, and he's familiar with humid conditions. I'm pretty certain his. If it wasn't his debut game, then certainly his second game was a Darwin game back up there a couple of years ago as well. So a lot to consider. I could see any number one of teams. Look, normally we're pretty good at predicting the side that'll run out because, to your point, 40, and to your point, 60s, Brad's generally pretty resolute and loyal to the teams, particularly winning teams. But yeah, one to keep an eye on.
I'm quite comfortable in talking about it this week because I'm normally there watching training, and if I'm suggesting that there's going to be a late change,
it becomes a bit of a loaded statement, doesn't it?
I might not be welcome at training.
Yeah. So 60's free of the shackles of knowledge here. He's shooting from the hip like everyone else does. So good for him.
Yeah. So and now I think with all these selections, there are a few more interesting ones in the New South Wales Cup team, mate.
Yeah. So I mean, as the Eels got increasingly fitter and fitter and healthier in the NRL, it was due to have some bad luck, wasn't it, Sixties? And unfortunately for the Eels and for Waqa Blake, we saw him leave in the first half against Canterbury, and it looked like he was clutching at a shoulder, maybe a collarbone. It was hard to tell. He didn't come back into the team, so he's out of the New South Wales Cup team list this week. You got to assume it's a somewhat semi-serious injury if he's clutching a shoulder or thereabouts, which means at least a few weeks on the sideline. And for the Regis team, it's pretty rough. They're taking on the second place team in New Zealand Warriors, and they look like this with Dejan Arce at fullback. You got Josh Minhinnick and Bowie Simonson on the flanks, although, like you said, there is that asterisk next to Bowie's attendance in this game. Even if he doesn't play NRL, if he goes up to Darwin and flies back to Sydney and then flies the North Harbour game, they might deem it to be too much wear and tear in the travel for him. But in the centres, Isaac Lumi and Zach Sini, Rankin and Arthur unchanged in the halves. In the front row, Ogden, Makatoa and Jaden Yates. Probably the one player who gets a big opportunity this week. As much as the rest of the team is struggling for the depth here, Jaden gets a chance to start in the absence of Mitch Rain. In the back row, though, Dan Keir, Jack Murchie, Luca Moretti. On the interchange, I don't know where they've managed to pluck this one from, but Manny Luke, Tony Mattelli, Jonte Jr., Bethan Meeser, and Kai Rodwell. Tavita Taumapenu, the 18th man. It is worth mentioning the Jersey Flegg is on a bye, so they technically had access to their Jersey Flegg roster for this game, but the other thing we've got to consider, boys, is that it's been a couple of years playing through those COVID-ravaged seasons where everything was in Australia, so maybe there's a decent chance that a lot of these young kids don't have their passports in order. Jonte obviously does, given that he's been named to play this game, and good to see the big man, the big hyphen, getting the call up, because I thought he was very good in his other New South Wales Cup appearance earlier this season against Penrith, and he now gets a chance to go across the ditch and rip in against a very good New Zealand team.
Yeah, and we've seen them now. This is the third player when we talk about, because Mahinnick also runs around in Ron Massey Cup for Wenty, and sorry, what's the name of the 14 in the
Manny
in
Luke.
the
Manny Luke.
Manny Luke, and he's been running around in Ron Massey Cup for Wenty as well previously with the Panthers, and their link with the St Mary's Club for a period of time before that. I think you mentioned he might have played for the Panthers in the trials.
He started the season at the Panthers in their New South Wales Cup, extended New South Wales Cup squad, I'm pretty certain. He was part of their match report in the 42-24 loss they sustained at the hands of the Eels.
Yeah, so diving into the Ron Massey Cup ranks, and yeah, some new faces as far as the Eels are concerned, and it'd be interesting to see how they go. It seems like we've got some players out of position. We've got Lumi now playing in the centres.
Yep. And the other thing to consider, it's a 10 o'clock kickoff on that flight across from Australia, so it's very tough conditions for the Eels here. They're probably going to do well to be competitive, I think.
Look, I think so too, but maybe this is exactly the test that they need.
Maybe.
And, there's going to be a bit more that Coach Nathan Kalis is going to be expecting from them this week because, as Clint said, that tenacity that we've seen from the junior rep teams, from the Flegg team, from the NRL team, it's been lacking to an extent the last 2 weeks. Like, they've been flat for 2 weeks now.
Yep. Yeah, it carried in from that Easter Monday game and through to this one.
It was. I mean, we sort of put that Easter Monday performance where they scraped home against the Magpies as being just similar to the NRL. They didn't hit their straps, but they won the game, and so we took that as a win. And thank you very much. Move on, but we've already talked about the New South Wales Cup game against the Bulldogs. So I guess the best thing right now is just to move on now and start talking about we've just spoke about New South Wales Cup travelling to New Zealand. I just want to come back to the NRL quickly, boys. what's your feeling about the arrangement with playing up in the Northern Territory? Like, just your overall takes on it.
In a purely when you isolate the idea, I like it. When you consider normal weeks of preparation, or maybe an extended week of preparation, if the NRL were more lenient with their scheduling, I think that it's good for promoting the game. It's good for the Parramatta Eels in general. Even though they haven't played the prettiest football, they've been effective up in Darwin. But when the agreement comes with 5-day turnarounds and the constant sort of Queensland teams, where we gain little geographical advantage from going there. I'm not saying we have to have it every year be the pure out-and-out benefactors of it, but it would be nice to have every other game be in our favour, and then the other game go to the Cowboys or the Broncos or the Dolphins, whoever they want to play there. But yeah, when you get stacked up with good Queensland teams on short turnarounds, it does become a bit frustrating as a fan.
Yeah, Clint?
Yeah, likewise. It's this year in particular, because of the short turnaround, is quite frustrating. When the agreement was initiated in 2014, it came along with a lot of community work, and there was at least a full week up there. The club has been robbed of that opportunity because of the scheduling. I think of the development opportunities and the school visits that are probably lost without those extra couple of days. That's not to say the club still won't do it; they will, but they won't be able to hit as much as they otherwise would have, and having the players, I guess, familiarize themselves within the local community for that week as well, and go out to those community events and take the photos and all of those things. So it's a bit disappointing from that end. To echo 40 sentiments as well, agree completely in terms of the opposition as well. It seems a little. A home game is so valuable, and if we're going to be giving it away, granted that there is a commercial agreement in place for that, but we should be equal partners in that agreement, and there should be whether it's the rotational opposition model that 40 suggested, or some other arrangement. I'm not a fan of versing the Queensland teams consistently in this match. Fortuitously, we've done well. We have a 6 from 8 record in Darwin across the 9 years the agreement's in place. But a fun little fact for you, gentlemen, actually. In the years that we've lost in Darwin, or that we've not played the game there, including the 2020 COVID-affected season, we've made the top 4. Every other year where we've won, we haven't.
That's interesting.
So we got to throw the game on Friday, is what you're trying to say.
Maybe if a loss happens, it's not the worst thing in the world.
I hadn't considered that, but
I mean,
my take on this, and I wrote on this last year, is that I think there has to be a determination about commercial realities versus footballing achievements and outcomes, and the onflow of commercial realities of commercial advantage from that. Now, the amount of money off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many million the arrangement is with the Northern Territory government, whether it's $1 million a year or whatever the case may be. But obviously, it's a sponsorship that the Eels value, and rightly so. If you've got sponsors who are prepared to throw in big coin, then you're gonna treat them like gold. However, as you've just pointed out, and this is something that I said last year, we are giving away a home game for that. So there is a loss of commercial revenue around that, with season ticket costs are down because they can't charge as much for season tickets because there is one game less at the stadium. So straight away, if you didn't take a game away, you've got extra revenue that would come in via every season ticket that's sold, or every membership that's sold is that little bit more expensive. And it's not, and when I say a little bit more expensive, I'm not trying to punish fans in that regard. I'm saying you'd get an extra game So you're paying a little bit extra for it. Plus you're selling the tickets for, the walk-up attendances or casual attendances that happen for that game. Now, if the Eels are taking on the Broncos at CommBank Stadium, what are we going to get now? If we were playing that on Friday night at 8:00 at CommBank, do you have any doubts that we'd get 20 to 25,000 people there?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be
Undoubtedly.
close to a
Yeah.
sellout.
Now, what are they going to get up in Darwin? 8 to 9,000. That's there. Now, okay, that's just the realities of playing in a state that's not a rugby league state, and but like that's the first thing that's there. Secondly, when you're drawn to play the Queensland teams, there's probably just as much chance that you're going to battle to get a win, a little bit more than if you were playing another Sydney club up there. And the likelihood is we're going to be drawn against a Queensland team more often than not now. Thirdly, we know that the impact from this game is not necessarily the week that follows. It's 2 weeks later. The Eels struggle physically about a fortnight after that trip up to Darwin. And there is no way you can acclimatise to Darwin. It might talk about, people are looking and seeing, they've gone up today, Tuesday, to acclimatise. You're not going to acclimatise in 3 or 4 days to the conditions up there. Matter of fact, you're running a training session. You're probably more likelihood that you have to worry about the recovery from the training session before the game. That's how I see it, because recovery is part of normal training. They're training in hotter conditions. They're going to struggle with their recovery during the week. So I'm not sure how they're going to vary the training, whether they're going to have it slightly lighter or what. But regardless, you take a game away there, your preparation's disrupted as well. I look at this and I go, just how much is, let's say we're getting $1 million for this. Is it worth the money? Like, is it really worth the money when you talk about the loss of revenue at the stadium in Parramatta that happens straight away? Wouldn't it all balance out in the end, money wise? So, or at least go close to it. And in the end, if we have better results and we don't put the team under fatigue, which we're doing at this time of the season or whenever it happens, in the long run, are we going to be better off for not playing up there? I mean, I hate to be raining on the parade of an Eels commercial arrangement, and I don't want to be looking as if I'm heavily down on that or criticising the club for it. But I just think it's something that maybe the club needs to look at in terms of what would best suit the football team, because after all, the Parramatta club is a football club first and foremost. And the better the results are, the better the commercial returns will be.
And the other thing to consider, sorry about my microphone there. The other thing to consider, Sixties, is that when we went into this commercial partnership originally, Magic Round wasn't a thing. And now Magic Round is a round where every other season you're losing a home game. So that's suddenly, every other year the Eels are without 2 home games, which is absolutely huge in a competition that is as close as the NRL.
Yeah. So, it's. I think there has to be thought that's put into this. I'm not sure how many years are left on the arrangement. I can't remember when it was last renewed. But anyway, we best move on to the general NRL.
Let's go up tempo, boys, because we are hitting the hour mark now in the news podcast. Let's start with a little bit of LL Cool J, because we're not calling it a crackdown. The NRL refusing to say that there's a crackdown on discipline across the code here, with sin bins up, penalties up, and in general, the adjudication of certain tackling methods being looked at very harshly. How do we see this, boys? Doing the right thing by the game, being overly vigilant, overly critical, or somewhere in between?
Is it? I'm just wondering. I remember when we had the crackdown around Magic Round. Was it 2 years ago?
I want to say it was about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it seemed like it was out of control and people were being sent to the sin bin like willy-nilly. And so I don't know how, I think they made the comparison of how it compares to last year, the number of sin bins. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen too many that I'm outraged by as far as sin bins go.
Mm-hmm.
What about yourselves?
I look at the stat line, and I think that's probably what's creating some of the outrage and discussion in the first instance. Because when you look at it in terms of the eye test and the pub test, I share your sentiments, Sixties. I haven't seen anything that makes me go, yeah, look, that's pretty harsh. I just go, no, that's how it's officiated now. We've come to expect, that to be the outcome. It's nothing that's really all that surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I might be thinking differently when Parramatta's affected by an outrageous call. Now, we lost the 2 players against the Roosters, and that was a significant reason that we lost that game. But wrong things happened in that game,
exactly.
and we lost Junior at that critical time against the Panthers, and we managed to overcome that quickly in Golden Point.
My beef with that Roosters, with the Roosters game, isn't even with the Roosters game, Sixties. It's that Will Penasini got put in a sin bin for influencing a try-scoring situation from an offside position from a line break, and lo and behold, the next week the West Tigers do the exact same thing against the Parramatta Eels, and there was no penalty, no sin bin, sorry. So that is really my gripe with officials. It's not this call it a crackdown, don't call it a crackdown, I don't care. If that's going to be the standard, they want to officiate these tackles and whatnot too, that's fine. I've got no issues with that. Again, my issue with the system comes with the inconsistency across the same thing, so across same results or similar results. So, that's unfortunately just been something that the NRL haven't been able to get right, or at least in my opinion, haven't been able to get right for quite some time. And then the other thing that I spoke to you about at the game was that across all grades, it seems like they're letting obstructions creep back into the picture a lot more. There's a lot of crabbing behind players that it used to be black and white not so long ago. They'd say, okay, you've run behind a player, you've taken advantage, that's it. And now we're seeing a lot of guys where the pass gets a bit sloppy or players are sort of out of sync and they run back in field behind players, and the referees it looks like they're making judgment calls and being able to say no play on, no one was impeded, when as before it was black and white. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think basically it's a scenario where if there was a try that was scored or a significant break that was made, that they're probably going to blow the whistle. But when they're seeing all this crabbing backwards and forwards behind players, and I mean, to an extent, there is an advantage that's being gained because they've repositioned where the ball is without suffering a penalty in any regard. I am with you. I think I'm seeing it a bit more in lower grades than the first grade, but we have seen some instances in first grade where we're all howling for the shepherd call, and it just doesn't happen. So it's one for us to monitor, I think.
All right, boys, is it time to get the scissors out? Long hair, yay or nay in the NRL? We saw in the very, very close game between Newcastle and the Penrith Panthers, Tyson Frizzell gets Jerome Luai from behind, getting the ponytail, but also a whole fistful of jersey. I think Graham Ansley's come out and said that the correct call was made. But is that a case of the correct call under the current rules, and the rules need to change? Because, geez, watching that as a neutral, I felt pretty aggrieved for Newcastle.
Well, look, for a start, I think when Clint and I come in, we're coming in from the takes of people that have relatively short hair. You're the one of us out of our trio who wears the hair a bit longer.
Yeah, I got the locks longer these days. In my playing days, it was always short hair though, so I was never a potential victim of a hair pulling incident. And I got to say, boys, we talk about referee discretion and the ability to make a judgment call in those obstructions. Like, it is pretty obvious when there is malice and intent on a hair pull. Like, surely the referee, and now that the bunker is allowed to intervene on foul play, between the two of them, they can make a correct judgment call on whether a tackle like Tyson Frizzell's was deliberate in an attempt to hurt a player by grabbing the hair, or going for what was essentially all he had. His target area was pretty much right there, and that was it. And he still got the jersey. Play on, you sort of invite that risk upon yourself by having long hair.
I think Annesley has set things up to basically say there is, from their perspective, there is no grey area. If you get hold of the hair, no matter how accidental, no matter if it's if you're grabbing mostly the jersey, that the referees have their hands tied, that they are going to blow a penalty. Now, I think that's ridiculous. And if it's going to be that black and white with the referees, then the NRL has to get rid of that and basically say that players need to wear their hair tied up.
In the NFL, if you have hair poking out from your helmet, past essentially there's a plate on the collar, a nameplate in the collar. It's then to be part of the uniform, if I'm not mistaken. So it's one of those risks you invite upon yourself, isn't it? Because it's like having long hair in any sort of culinary discipline. You need to have it tied up, or you need to have it in a hair cap, because it is an OH&S risk, just like it is in NRL, where you're presenting yourself not even about being a tackle target, but the fact that you can give a defender accidental leverage on your neck is such a self-risk.
Yep, and whether it be that if players have got their hair tied, if they're wearing it in a ponytail or something like that, and it's still coming down their back, whether they can get it tucked down behind the jersey, or they're made to wear headgear, or whatever the case may be. But if the NRL takes out any risk of it happening by deeming that players have to have the hair pulled up, and then any contact that's made with hair that's down on the jersey, it's not the fault of the tackler, and I don't think it is the fault of the tackler in any way, shape, or form.
No, I agree.
If you've got the hair hanging down the jersey like that, that's the risk that you're going to take. If you're running out on the field like that, bad luck. That's how I see it anyway. Clint, what's your thoughts?
This really frustrates me, gents, because we're in a time now in the sport where we're asking more of the players than we ever have in all facets of the game, on and off the field. And on top of that, there's definitely a culture, deliberate or not, that has crept in, where we're making the players accountable for absolutely everything, including incidental collisions and run-ins. Now, they're being asked to, I guess the word that I'm searching for here is be accountable. We've touched on in recent weeks the rise of the hip drop tackle, and we absolutely agree that there's an accountability piece there. But this is a stretch too far. This is where the NRL should have a policy. They should make it clear, and the players abide by that policy, and it becomes you wear the consequences at your own risk if you don't want to agree with that policy. So, for Tyson Frizzell to be penalised for that and Penrith to gain an advantage for that, geez, that is bottom of the barrel stuff. I don't buy that being an acceptable penalty in this day and age. When we ask the players to do so much and be mindful of so many other things, there's bigger fish to fry. Let's establish a policy. You choose to follow it. If not, well, you know what? You got tackled. You chose to wear your hair out. You chose to grow your hair out. We can equally make a case of, okay, so if you happen to have a team that has a playing group full of players with long hair, it could, as ridiculous and ludicrous as it sounds, it could be a strategy to gain penalties.
No joke. You could say to your boys, all right, we're all going to the hairdresser, you're getting extensions, this week,
yep.
Because, just the off chance that you get one penalty can absolutely change a game. So, yeah, a lack of common sense from the NRL, disappointing but not surprising. Now, boys, Queensland would never. A bit of a discussion this week about the retirement from representative football of New South Wales centre Jack Wighton, looking to focus on club football, but not necessarily club football for the Canberra Raiders. Wighton looking to enter his final chapter of his playing career by focusing on the NRL level of play, boys. Do we like it? Do we think he's in the right? I mean, obviously it's his right as a player. There's no doubting that. Has he made the right call for his career by foregoing that New South Wales bonus, given that he was pretty much a surefire selection, whether as a centre or maybe on the bench as that utility? What do we make of Jack Wighton pulling up stumps for part of his playing career?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. If I'm Jack Wighton, and I'm in the getting ready for that. Maybe the last big contract, might even be the last contract of my career. If I think that I'm going to be able to perform better by not being involved in Origin, I've done Origin before, and maybe I'm considering it. If I'm a passionate New South Wales player, as no doubt he is, I might be looking at what the playing stocks are and thinking, well, there's still some good players to
There's
come
no
in.
shortage of good centres, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. So, and just on whether he moves or not, I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I like seeing players who can be one club players. I know it's a decreasing reality in these days. It'd probably be good if he could play out his career at Canberra, but from the player's perspective, they've only got a short career to maximise their money or to set themselves up. Sounds like all the rumblings are that he's looking to relocate and set up his family in another state. And I guess good luck to him.
Wighton to Melbourne confirmed.
Yeah.
But yes,
don't put it out there into the universe.
Obviously, a lot of the media sort of take it as a fait accompli that Wighton will join Wayne Bennett at the Dolphins. We've also talked that it might be for less money than what Canberra offered. So maybe that was Canberra getting on the front foot to fans, saying that, hey, our offer was highly competitive if he does leave. So, yeah, I mean, it would be a big loss for Canberra, a big gain for the Dolphins. And, yeah, in terms of the rep football boys, yeah, you can't really ever be, especially with the way Wighton's played his rep career, he's always been a very good player for both Australia and New South Wales, and has probably earned an early retirement in that regard. Now, selection news across the NRL boys, very big week. We've got players returning, players dropped across a multitude of teams. We'll start with the big return of Kalen Ponga. There was a huge question mark about his timeline recovering from concussion. He went over to Canada to get some advanced treatment there. He's back after a few weeks, and I'm going to be brutally honest. I think it's probably maybe a third, if not a quarter of the time I thought he needed to spend on the sidelines, given some of those symptoms he was showing. But he's been rushed back, apparently with due diligence, but in my opinion, rushed back to start at 5'8" for the Newcastle Knights, who also joined by the dropping of Sam Walker, the loss of Taumalolo for the Cowboys, and who's the other player I'm missing here, boys?
The return of Crichton.
Angus Crichton.
Return of Angus Crichton, so obviously
the injury to Dewey.
Yeah, so the return of Angus Crichton, obviously a massive boost to the Roosters and a nice story for rugby league, given where Crichton was at with his mental headspace there. And that is one of the things we've spoken about in the past is that rugby league is making good strides and bounds in is, being much more open and positive about dealing with mental illness. So with Angus, he's been given time to work his way back to first grade, now making that step. And then for Adam Dewey, geez, from bad to worse I got to say, a poor bastard here, because third ACL on the same knee, his recovery time frame is now expected to be between 12 to 16 months, boys. And that, he is very fortunate in that he just re-signed for West Tigers, which is very good luck for him and a really nice, not a silver lining, but, small, consolation prize, I suppose, for him. But that is tantamount to a career ender, because when he comes back, who's going to touch him for anything above league minimum?
Yeah, he's likely to. If you're talking about that 16 months, we're starting to really talk about missing 2 seasons of football.
Yes, and then another season to get back to your best. So that's 3 seasons of football before you're back to being able to earn your best potential contract.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate for him. And yeah, just quickly, I'm in agreement with you about Ponga. I guess we will know very quickly how wise that decision is, because given how simple the concussions were starting to happen for him, he's not going to miss out on a collision when he returns. They're going to happen, and let's hope that he's over that ease of which he was being concussed. And
I certainly hope so.
Yeah,
because gents, beyond it feeling a bit rushed from that perspective, do Newcastle really need Kalen Ponga in the side right now? I mean, they've been going pretty all right. And Ponga is a player that demands the ball. Jackson Hastings has been managing the team pretty well with the presence of Gamble and Miller there. Uh, is this a risk Newcastle needs to take right now?
No. I don't believe that it is. I don't believe that they're anywhere near. Well, I don't want to use the term panic stations in bringing someone back, but you just feel like it's been rushed. I think that maybe the pressure is how much of the salary cap he takes up, and that there's that amount of the salary cap just sitting on the sideline all the time. Maybe he feels the pressure. Maybe the coach feels the pressure. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's a wise decision. I don't think it was going to impact their season too much for him to sit out for maybe another month, but we can only wish him well with that. Did the Sam Walker him being dropped to reserve grade, was that a surprise in any way?
Not for me, boys. I'm careful to say very critical of Sam Walker because when I say critical of a young playmaker, I tend to mean within the confines of being constructive and not being trying to tear him down because he isn't, being a 5-star superstar week in, week out. But with Sam Walker, there was a lot of hype when he came in the first grade. He hit the ground running, had a wonderful cutout pass, but his game in terms of the senior level hasn't been able to be rounded out properly, it feels like, given the pressure and speed that defenses put on you in the NRL. So maybe some time to not rehabilitate, but just get back some confidence and get through some patterns and structures in reserve grade will do him good. But this is, whether it was him or Keary, this is the change that's been coming for a while because the Roosters have been quite stagnant in the playmaking department for a fair chunk of time now.
It's a fair player they're able to bring into the halves.
Yeah, imagine saying, what, I'm going to drop my young star halfback /5'8", and I'll just look at my centre for 3/4 line and say, oh, you know what? You might be the best fullback in the competition that's not playing at fullback, but I'm going to put you into the 5'8" where you'll be one of the best 5'8". So Joey Manu, hell of a player. He's stepping up to the plate for the Roosters.
Yeah. Now, your thoughts on the Cowboys, how they're travelling and how they're going to travel now without Taumalolo?
It's a challenge, that's one of their highest paid players.
Is this one of those cases of addition by subtraction where the rest of the forward pack steps up in the absence of Jason Taumalolo? I got to say, JT hasn't looked like he's been at his best this season. We've been so used to him not just pumping out 200+ meters, but with so many of those runs being high impact, and it just feels like the venom isn't in his carries at the moment. So maybe the sitting out is a sort of silver lining for him where he can recharge the batteries. But yeah, a lot was said about the Cowboys from last year to this year, boys. They were huge overachievers in 2022. The benefactors of a very easy draw, and also just, on the back of their own efforts in the preseason coming into the season super fit. And things aren't clicking for them in 2023. Whereas with the Parramatta Eels, you could see where things were going wrong and what they need to do to improve it. And we saw that effort against Penrith Panthers, then the build against the Tigers and the Bulldogs. They've made those steps, and they're still making those steps. For the Cowboys, they just don't seem to know what their identity is right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the difference, say, between Parramatta and the Cowboys right now, right in this moment, is that we can see that Parramatta's sort of settling to a few new combinations, but there's also quite a number of settled combinations that remain in the team. Like there is a core stability still within the team. That the Cowboys lineup they're still relatively new as a unit. That last year was a real breakout year for them, and obviously they flew under the radar and arguably overachieved for the team that they had. I wasn't convinced that they were going to have a strong season this year, but there was that part of me that was thinking, this he's gone so well, and this player's gone so well. Maybe it wasn't so much the draw. Maybe it wasn't so much the people not being aware of what they were capable of doing. But gee, I think they've flown under the radar this year when it comes to criticism.
Yeah, I mean, 360 had Peyton on, and he was speaking about how he knew what areas he had to address in terms of picking up the intensity. And since then, I think they've gone 0-2. So, yeah, the heat is going to start ratcheting up on them, even if Peyton had a fantastic year last season.
Well, what do
They've
we think?
definitely had the benefit of being an out of Sydney team and not being in the Sydney media. We've had the Tigers, we've had ourselves take some of that heat over the earlier parts of the round, but of the competition proper, I should say. But if if a loss to Newcastle this weekend, it compounds an existing problem, and it definitely needs to be scrutinised a bit more.
Well, have a look at their draw after that. It's I think they've got quite a tough run of matches that are coming up in the coming weeks. I mean, are they guaranteed of getting past the Knights with how the Knights have been going this year?
There's certainly no certainties. And to be honest, and I have the great privilege of knowing a little bit more about Cowboys games with a good friend of mine being a very stoic Cowboys supporter, very one-eyed Cowboys supporter, and he's absolutely singing the song of the pessimist at the moment. He's not looking forward to the games that come, and he's already writing the season off. But to be honest, if there is a week to do it, it is this week, because to my point before, Jensen, the inclusion of Ponga in the Newcastle side, that's a high-profile player that demands a lot of ball and takes away opportunities from the likes of Jackson Hastings, from the likes of Lachlan Miller, who've been demanding the ball in his absence. And maybe Newcastle throw a little less at the Cowboys than what the Newcastle team of the past couple of weeks has been throwing at oppositions, and it might just open a doorway, might just create that little bit of chance for the Cowboys to get that against the odds win that they might need to kickstart a bit of confidence for themselves.
Well, the following weeks they play the Sharks and the Roosters. So if they don't get past the Knights, you'd have to say they're going to be waiting until round 11 when they play the Dragons that before they get their next win. And I think they might go back to back. They've got the West Tigers after that. And then we play the Cowboys in round 13 at Combank Stadium.
Correct me if I'm right, Jens, is that an Origin affected round?
I honestly can't keep track of the Origin schedule, so don't ask me.
Let's have a look.
While Sixties have a look, we'll start talking about Origin.
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot of buys that week.
So that would be an Origin impacted game then, yeah.
Yeah, so...
it's not going to be too many Parramatta Eels picked.
Who's going to lose the most players?
The Broncos.
Probably still the Cowboys.
No, they're probably the Cowboys, yeah. Kevy does love some of those Cowboys forwards, and obviously Valentine in the back line, and maybe Murray Talangi too. He'd probably be in the mix for a wing spot as well, but it's going to be fierce competition. But speaking of Origin boys, New South Wales, well, they've had Jack Wighton retire. Obviously, we just spoke about that. They've got some question marks in two positions, 5'8" and centre. So Jerome Luai, the incumbent, a lot of the conversation has been about whether the club combination with he and Nathan Cleary is worthy of being trumped by the likes of Nico Hines or Matt Burton. I do notice a lack of a certain Parramatta halfback in the conversation there. Been a bit alarming for me because I don't know what Mitchell Moses has to do to be in this conversation. But likewise at centre, I was going to say at centre.
I was going to say, yeah, sorry, go ahead, John.
At centre, you have Joseph Swali'i, Campbell Graham, Latrell Mitchell, Tom Trbojevic. And I'm not saying he should be picked, but the fact that people like Bradman Best are getting mentioned before Will Penasini is almost, I want to say, embarrassing. Like, not like Will should be a pick there because the New South Wales backline stocks are so deep, but when Talakai and Bradman Best are getting a name run ahead of him, like, what's going on, guys? What are we doing here?
Look, selfishly, gents, you want the best for the player in their development, and you want them to get those higher honours. And our players definitely deserve to be in the discussion and a part of the selection discussion as much as any other player. Certainly with their form over the last couple of years, and even this year to date as well. Just because of we lost our first three doesn't mean that these guys haven't been playing well and haven't been playing good against good opposition. But selfishly as a Parramatta fan, I'm quite happy that no one's talking about Mitchell Moses. I'm quite happy that no one's talking about Penasini.
It helps you make a run through that Origin stretch.
Well,
we want those boys to get a nickel and gold.
Yeah, well, I'm I'm hoping that Freddie ignores Reg's great form then.
Well, that was my follow-up was, given that he was quite legitimately one of Australia's best players during that World Cup campaign, is this nasty, and they refuse to admit it, but it clearly is, but this nasty set of politics, player politics, going to keep Reagan Campbell-Gillard out of the New South Wales team when he is quite clearly New South Wales' best forward, like best prop forward, or probably even ahead of Junior.
Yeah, I guess we're going to see soon enough, and but I want to come back to your point about the 5'8" discussion. So they're talking about Nico Hines being selected as 5'8", and look, I'm not going to knock Hines' credentials to be in consideration for an Origin berth. He's possibly one of the best options that you could have for a number 14 in the Origin team. But if you're prepared to discuss a halfback being selected at 5'8", then why don't we have Mitch Moses there in the discussion? Mitch Moses has been called up for Origin in the past, so it's not like he's not used to being in the camp. There was some. There's always been a few question marks around Jerome Luai. I can understand the argument about keeping a club combination together.
But it's not even a good club combination, 60s. Luai is in the best team in the competition and contributes the odd good run. He is not anywhere near the playmaker that any of the other candidates are, even Matt Burton. And I think Matt Burton is still like very raw in terms of being picked at Origin at 5'8". Like Hines and Moses in particular, a player that has paid his dues and has, really crafted his trade to become a top 2 halfback in the competition. Like, why is he not part of this conversation? Like, I don't understand. I do not understand.
I was going to say, I think, gents, it's a little bit of trial by media, and there's obviously an association of or perceived association and I guess reputation around Mitch that precedes him probably from his younger days. That's just hung around, and it's something that gets perpetuated by certain fans, and both Parramatta and non-Parramatta fans. Probably more so the latter in this instance, but also when a large contingent of the media has their discussion points, and those same people are on the selection panels for these teams, it always becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy anyway. And it's almost as though they put something out there to bait it, to bait the public into their expressing their sentiments around it, and use that as the basis of what decision they might make, as opposed to it being the old school selectors going into the back room, very little outside noise. None of them have any association with any media, and they make the decision, and they live and die by those decisions for each game.
And moving on without bogging down too much time, boys, because we're getting to the hour and a half mark, but I fully expect other sort of Origin, like legitimate Origin contenders from Parramatta, like Lane and Madison, to be completely overlooked too. So whatever it is, Unfortunately, the Parramatta Eels, they really struggle to not produce Origin caliber players, but get them to make that step in terms of the selection. So tough sledding for our boys, but good for the NRL campaign. So that's a nice silver lining there. Let's round out a big news podcast with what has been the most topical discussion of the week, because there's been so many Golden Point games to start this season. Is Golden Point fine? Do we need to tinker with it, boys? Is it okay for a team to get to Golden Point and not get any points? Or should we go to this new 4-point system where normal wins are worth 4 points, Golden Point wins, you lose a point for winning, you get 3 points, and the loser gets 1 point, and ties are worth 2 points. I've got a pretty strong opinion on this that I'll get to eventually, but I'm keen to hear what you boys say about the Golden Point discussion.
For me, it's very simple, 40. We either have Golden Point or we don't have Golden Point. As a Parramatta supporter, I hate Golden Point.
We're never the team that's clawing our way back into the game to get the Golden Point. We're always the one that has the lead and gets gunned down at the end. So you go with the Golden Point. Come on, boys, please just hold on.
I don't have a huge bank of games in my memory where we've had success in Golden Point. I know we did have one this year, and I'm casting my mind back to another to a victory over the Bulldogs, maybe where Mitch Moses kicked a
Yeah, I
field
remember that
goal.
one. Yep.
Yeah, 17, I think it was.
Yeah, but not too many outside of that. So, but as a neutral, I don't mind the theatre of the Golden Point games that I watch. I guess what it comes down to is if the NRL suddenly said tomorrow there will be no more Golden Point games, it'll just be a draw, I'd go, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I can cop that too, Clint. What's your
but also equally, if the NRL says Golden Point games will continue, I'll go, okay, fair enough. But if you said to me, we're going to tinker with Golden Point, I'd say, can't we just leave the game? Like, just leave it.
The tinkering they're talking about actually has long-reaching ramifications for later finishes because not getting 4 points for a win is significant. So, Clint, what's your take on this, mate? Like the system, don't like Golden Point, want to see the system change to that 4-point system or something similar?
The suggestions that have been put out in the media for the last couple of weeks about introducing a new point system, I absolutely despise. I don't want to see any of that. We're talking about one of the things that makes rugby league now is Golden Point. And I wasn't a big fan when it was originally introduced. Obviously, we were a part of the first Golden Point game back in 2003, and we lost to Manly at Brookvale that day. Or should I say that it was? Yeah, it would have been Manly. They just finished the Northern Eagles joint venture the year prior. But look, a win's a win and a loss is a loss, whatever way you slice and cut it, So let's leave it as that. And to Sixties' point, if we wanted to reintroduce the draw, then we should. Let's be rugby league. Let's stop trying to be every other sport and go, we've got to stop looking at other sports and going, we can take some learnings from them, but we've got to put a rugby league lens on things. We can't just adopt things willy-nilly and go, oh, that works for them, so we'll get a little bit of that and a little bit of that. It's just like, then who are we as a sport? It's a war of attrition out there. And the part of the reason it is a war of attrition is because you fight so damn hard for a win, and then you feel the depths of loss, particularly one in which you come so close, And I think our good friend Adam Hawes said something on Twitter earlier today about it removing the theatre. Couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it as it is. Doesn't need to be touched.
Yeah, I mean, you probably said it kind of I would have, but frankly, the idea of you deserve something for losing is embarrassing. And anyone that's peddling that, I know Buzz Rothfield was on 360, which really surprised me because Buzz Rothfield strikes me as the sort of person that also hate the idea of participation awards and all that sort of thing that's going on. So a bit of hypocrisy maybe there from old Buzz. But yeah, come on. Like you said, the theatre of the game, the integrity of the game. When you lose, you lose. When you win, you win. It doesn't make a difference if it's ugly as sin, if it's a nail biter, if your team got mowed down after a 20-point lead and had to win it in Golden Point. You're the victor at the end of the day, or you're the loser at the end of the day, and you've got to pick yourself up off the ground and get to next week with zero competition points, or you celebrate whatever sort of victory you had. Like that is the fabric of our game. So, and the other thing too, like I mentioned before, was if you start bringing in these 4-point wins, 3-point wins, 1-point losses, and whatnot. There are far-reaching ramifications for later seeding at the end of the season, where teams have a couple of Golden Point wins, but have more wins than another team on the ladder, but end up behind them on competition points because they have
unintended consequences just seems to be a foreign concept in rugby league.
Yeah, exactly.
And we worry about it when it becomes a problem when it rears its head, as opposed to being proactive and actually planning out some of these things before we actually even make the discussion points.
You really, really seized upon it. In that league needs to stop tinkering with its rules, needs to stop trying to ape and mimic other codes. If there is something to be gained by copying another code that they do very well, fair enough. But rugby league is rugby league. It has a very good thing going on here in Australia and England and New Zealand. And yes, you can talk about trying to grow the game internationally, but you're not going to do that by introducing 4-point wins and 3-point wins and 1-point losses. So could
you imagine being a player, having gone through a Golden Point loss, and they go, well, the post-match presser, well, it got away from you there, but at least a point there, hey lads.
Yeah.
And it's like, how hollow is that interview going to be? How hollow is the feeling going to be? You look back and to the point that you're making, say you hypothetically have 10 wins at the end of the year, but you had a couple of Golden Point losses, so you qualify to the finals ahead of a team that's won 2 or 3 more games more than you because of that. What?
Yeah, next thing we'll be introducing some convoluted rugby union scoring system where they get competition points for tries or for the margin of the
four-point
win.
wins, blah blah blah, 7-point losses or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then next thing they'll be introducing something similar to the betting.
I don't
if
know.
Your team leads, if your team leads at halftime, they're going to get a point for this match.
And part of me, boys, you mentioned that 60s about those bonus points and whatnot. There is a part of me that is fascinated by what sort of think tank and focus groups that these sporting codes are commissioning to get to these results. Like, what brains trust is that they listen to? They're like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's, make wins that much more convoluted. Like, the fans will love it. I don't know.
I can tell you exactly where I think it's coming from, and it's coming from the same sort of thinkers that wanted to introduce a top 10 or a top 12.
The top 10 and top 12, I know what that is because that's a pure financial thing.
Well,
more
finals. This is the same thing, because if you don't have clear finalists or more teams in contention with the possibility of how many points they can get out of a one match, right, then you keep the competition table open for longer. And that's how all these convoluted point systems come in, because people then can start calculating, oh, we're still a chance because we've got 3 games to go, and in each game we've got a possibility of accruing this many points. And yeah, it just, and then you've got losing teams who should be getting 0 points, and for some reason they're attracting points in a game. Yeah, it's convoluted. It takes away from what the sport is. And yeah, I would hate for rugby league to start going down that track, because I honestly think once that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, or that would be the leak in the dam, in the dike that opens up for the floodwaters to come rushing through. If they introduce a point system for Golden Point like that, you're going to start to get those think tanks. What else can we make points available for? And I say that in all seriousness.
Yeah.
It reeks of a third-party marketing firm being hired, conduct some market research and say, how can we improve the entertainment value of it year on year?
Yeah.
And let's introduce this and introduce that. And these ideas being floated to board members and C-level executives who use their contacts in the media to float these ideas, to get a little bit of feedback. And if it's not too harsh, all right, we'll give it a test and a go. If they absolutely hate it, all right, well, we'll shelve that, and maybe we might come back to it again a year or two later and see what the sentiment's like then. I think we all hate it, gents. Let's just hope that that's the sentiment that's shared by the powers that be.
Yeah. Yes, now, John, can we finish on a comedy note with the Dragons, please?
Yeah, I saved the best to last because it was meant to be earlier in the show notes, but it had to be the way to finish off. I don't know what's going on at St. George, boys, and I don't think they know either, because they're actually under investigation now, boys. Initially, it was reported as losing an interchange for failing to comply to the official team sheet submitted an hour before kickoff, with Moses and Bai coming into the starting team against the Canberra Raiders at dummy half. And initially, it was reported that they'd been billed an interchange because they made the change, but apparently they weren't billed the interchange. The NRL is now launching an official investigation to what's going on. I mean, amateur hour, bush league, whatever sort of old school, synonym or idiom you want to use for it, I don't really know if it fits, because this is really, really bad. Like this is meant to be a professional outfit, boys, and they can't even get their team sheet right. What's going on at St. George?
Are we beyond the Benny Hill theme song for this one?
I think we might be past Benny Hill for these boys. Like, this is starting to get into the tragic territory. Like, someone get out the sad trumpets and whatnot.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it was time for a Seinfeld jingle, but it's because as we know, I want to borrow a Seinfeld quote when we're talking about St. George. That's a shame. Maybe that's the point at which we leave. That's a shame.
That's a shame indeed. How about those St. George Illawarra Dragons? Anyway, unfortunately, Anthony Griffin, he is a dead man walking, boys. They'd made an unofficial approach to Billy Slater, who wanted no part of the St. George Illawarra Dragons.
Wise decision from Billy.
Wise decision from Billy there. They had Shane Flanagan there. There's a big faction that want him back there, but apparently the chairman of the board, Doust, doesn't want him there. Actually, Parramatta's own Nathan Brown was linked to a transition back to the Dragons as well in a non-head coach capacity, whether it's GM of football or head of pathway. So lots of happening at the Dragons, but they're kind of like a duck in a pond where they're just tracking water, aren't they? Like their feet are moving real fast, but they're not going anywhere. So I don't know.
I think whoever comes in there, I think they're basically facing a long period of rehabilitation of that club.
It's similar to the Newcastle job, right?
Yep.
Adam O'Brien is still trying to sled through, and he's probably not quite on as hot a seat as Griffin, but you can see why he might be rushing back someone like Ponga, and that he feels like he needs to get great results this year because he is on a hot seat. But for Griffin, like I said, dead man walking. Like they're literally reaching out to other coaches to sound him out about coming on board. He is gone. So it's a tough gig in the NRL. It is one of the most results-oriented driven businesses or results-driven businesses going around, and you pick up these absolute messes, and there's probably a stronger word I could use there in terms of a cluster something, but it is so hard to rebuild these clubs, and when you get a coach like Brad Arthur that shows he was capable of it, that's why you don't let them go. And a good, not a great NRL head coach. Good NRL head coach is worth so much these days, let alone a great one. So the Dragons, they continue to lurch from issue to issue alongside the West Tigers.
And a club like St. George, like the Tigers, they got to be willing to go through it. They got to stop looking for a quick fix and the cosmetic changes of some staff, and go, you know what, we are where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to go from here.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm so glad that the club was able to bring in someone like BA, because I think if we brought in another coach in those years leading up to the salary cap crisis, I think we would have been in all sorts for years to come. We were fortunate that, as far as the coaching philosophy and the belief in the club and the passion about the club, that just didn't change with BA. It just we had someone who was committed to the job and saw it as a journey that he wanted to see through, and he's still there, and the Eels have been all the better for it. And you can imagine what it would have been if you had someone come in that didn't have that passion for who the Eels are. You couldn't have blamed them for jumping off that ship, could you? I mean, look,
Absolutely not.
In retrospect, did you blame Ricky Stewart for jumping ship? I don't. I mean, I'm glad that he jumped ship because we ended up with BA, but I don't hate him for jumping ship now. Like when we saw what ended up happening at the club, and he obviously knew the state that salary cap was in and what was going on, I couldn't blame him. So, Anyway, as you said, you have to get these clubs, if they want to fight their way out of it, they have to commit to a course.
Yeah, it's a marathon.
Prepared to stick with.
Exactly. And on that note, boys, if the Parramatta Eels haven't been a club that successfully did that, we can sort of look down at all those pathetic clubs that are still struggling. And we get to celebrate that, head into a very tough road home trip to Darwin. But we'll be back with the preview later this week. Sixties tentatively. We are still hoping to have a live site set up on Friday for the game, but we'll have to keep listeners informed of that as we get the details updated ourselves. So keep tuned for that one, but for now, stay safe. Thanks for dropping by and giving us a listen. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Go you Eels.